Today, Rinpoche began the section on equalizing and exchanging self with others, passed down from Master Shantideva, showing us the importance of getting rid of a self-cherishing attitude and the excellent qualities of bringing on the attitudes of the Buddhas that cherish others.
Lamrim saje jina sundu ilanji saje guba marba guba. Ne saje guba tengo dele tinye baro tinye ba. Shawala yungla tene jambala sun. Dajen ji pen dan maji nyeme dan. Dajen ji samba kona je ne bas. Dajen ji Okay.
Okay, so so once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, specifically the section Training the Mind in the Stage of the Path for Beings of Great Capacity. When we look at the section on training the mind in the stage of the path for beings of great capacity, we find that there are two major headings in order to train in the spirit of enlightenment, or two causal lineages for the arisal of the spirit of enlightenment. So the first is the training based on the 7-point cause and effect passed down by Master Ithaca for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then the second is the training based, the training of equalizing and exchanging self with others based on the Conqueror's Child, Master Shantideva. So these are the two causal lineages. So first, the training based on the 7 cause and effect personal instructions in the lineage descended from the great elder Ithaca, we've completed. So we've gone through those 7 points. Now we arrive at that second category, which explains the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. So in the English, if you turn to page 313, I believe, I'm sorry, that's the Tibetan. In the English, turn to page 50. I think the numbers are at 52, and then just back it up. It's the section number 4. I believe it's the 9th category in the actual Tibetan outline. But we could check that, but I believe that's the number. So when we look at the training based on the teachings of the Conqueror's Child, Shantideva, there are 3 categories that are presented. First, contemplating the benefits of exchanging self and others, and the faults of not exchanging self with others. So this is category number 1. Number 2, the ability to exchange self and other if you accustom yourself to the thought of doing so. And then number 3, the stages of meditating on how to exchange self with others. So these are the 3 major headings that will explain the training based on the teachings of the Conqueror's Child, Master Shantideva. And the trainings are the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice, just as a note. Digsum. So once again, in Tibetan it's on page 312, and on English it's on page 50, 51, 52 area. Tambo.
Sambas ne dajen ji pen da ma ji nyemi samba wa sung da da bu din bare
Lesso.
de lan ja ji bo de khung de sa ji ji di wu
Okay.
사제제
Less so.
다젠지 편도 마지 예매 상바데 대 공들 고만 라지여지로 된자지비 사제제 되도
Less so. The exchanging self with others section, or the major heading, the training based on the teachings of the conqueror's child Shantideva, has those three categories. The first category is contemplating the benefits of exchanging self and others and the faults of not exchanging self with others. And in Jayan Sheba's outline, we find that he says that there are four categories within that section, four separate points that Lama Tsongkhapa makes. Digson Rinpoche.
어제 다지 편도 마지 예매 상바들 사제 지그난 담부들에宣주를 해야 돼.
Less so.
담불 행원에宣주를 가지 다다 젠나네 뇨도 저완도 바데 다다 젠도 저와 제샤와 사이 담바 제바샤 셰다서 어때 담부들에
Less so.
宣主来看是大当人呢牛的叫对吧的是大人要把结果呢先基本对吧的大当人都介绍啊上一当把结巴啥是大人家结果呢先基本出的上万斤娘结果呢送蛮多啊上万斤娘真的牙个有蛮多啊
Less so.
大当人都介绍啊上一当把结巴啥谁当是热闹当不得
Then the Shedang Jikten, the Tambo Nangla. Okay, so the first category among the four is the first quote from the Bodhicharya Avatara from Master Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds. And it says, whoever wishes to quickly protect self and other must exchange self for other. Practice this excellent secret. So this is the first category in the outline. Here it's saying, if one wishes to fulfill the needs of oneself and others, then this is the practice that one should engage in order to do so. It's an excellent practice for gaining that result. Digson.
다진 지 편도 많이 녀미서 오지 나 담부도 어때래
Less so.
다니 받는 맛도 용도 지내도와 지내 봐 대구 젠든들 레종스 지내도와 든도당 낸로게 도와도 그걸로 젠지반지 비진들 되는 종요아레스 대구 젠든들 레종스 지내도 내 봐 대구 다든 돌이죠. ranjenzelden shungres. Shungres ode nibatere.
That's so. So the second category is the next stanza from the same text, Master Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara. It says, whatever worldly joy there is arises from wishing for others' happiness. So all of the happiness in the higher realms of cyclic existence and the various states of happiness, so the actual existence in the higher realms of cyclic existence and the states of happiness experienced within cyclic existence all come from wishing for others' happiness. So here this is saying, come from cherishing others. Whatever worldly suffering there is arises from wishing for your own happiness. So all of the sufferings that are experienced occur from the self-cherishing attitude. So this is the first point, that all of the happiness occurs from cherishing others and all sufferings occur from self-cherishing. Digson.
어제 다 손바드네. 손바든 대용도와 모두 셰다 제구데 셰바랑게 된 셰다. 토바 젠지 된제 봐. 내진진 쳐바두스. 와도 손바드렌도와.
Lessa.
대라진지 다젠야바 제고네 펜여바데 네 늘데나 하고 그래스. 모두 셰다 제구데스. 네 그샤 뭐뭐 셰고요. 만들어진 셰그레스. 셰바랑게 셰바 소소주랑게 된 셰바다 토바 샤자만의 보다게 yen게 된 셰바 Daniela tuna hakoya res. Shajaman Buddha Rajizi Pombala Tene, Sanjenda res. Sheba Susu Juzege, Rajizi Latene, what the Tanda Sanje Matoba de Tereson was it. Yenji Duanzeba, Denijin, Chabatus, Chabala Tuna Hako res.
Lesso.
Yeah.
So the third point that's made is here. What need is there to say more? Look at the difference between these two. Ordinary persons act for their own welfare. The sage acts for others' welfare. So here the point being made is it's very obvious that it's important because Buddhas have abandoned the self-cherishing attitude and act for others' needs, act on behalf of others. We have not abandoned the self-cherishing attitude. We've been born again and again and still have not abandoned this attitude. And we see what the result is. We are still bound by cyclic existence, whereas the Buddha has abandoned the self-cherishing attitude and is no longer bound to cyclic existence. So it's quite obvious when we look at the difference between ordinary persons, like ourselves, and the Buddha. It's quite obvious when we look at ordinary beings like ourselves and the Buddha that the self-cherishing attitude is to be abandoned and cherishing others to be adopted. So that's the point of number 3, that it's quite obvious based on our self-cherishing attitude and the Buddha's other cherishing attitude, which of the two to adopt and which to abandon. Digsun. Dejipa. The Shiloka Dejipa. Sumbatsar.
Sumbatsan da jebaro. Da de jenji do ngenta. Yanda jewa majinas. Ranjin da jenjin ke ne what jebe maluwa in da jenya majiba ina. Majina. Sanje ni do muru sanje kumutu to ayo mares. Sanje kumutu anu yore. Da jenya ba jena sanje to gre. Da jenya ba majina sanje to mares. Muru jins. Koana doa mes. Koala kuyu nega sune ranjinzi la ten doa yung ayo mares. Ne jenjinzi la ten doa yung kuru sonde zare. She somba tar da jeban zemba goba kunju go dans. Rani jenzi do goba kunju go res. Rani jenzi goba kunju gunde rendwa. Da jeban zemba goba kunju go dans. Da jenzi la ten ne 제가 나치 동행을 수비 그밖인가 용거res 제 제반제바 판송소바 타지지 내수 소모 다젠지 상바고나 what 제바딩 바래 이바데.
Okay, so number 4 is the rest of this. If you do not genuinely exchange your own happiness for others' suffering, you will not achieve Buddhahood, and even in cyclic existence you will have no joy. Consider how being self-centered is the door to all suffering, and being other-centered is the basis of all excellence. So this is point number 4. So it says that Buddhahood is impossible. Buddhahood cannot be achieved without adopting an attitude which cherishes others and abandoning the self-cherishing attitude. So the point being made here is that A, you can't achieve Buddhahood, and then B, that even within cyclic existence, you will be kept from states of happiness. So this self-cherishing attitude will cause you suffering within cyclic existence as well. So it will not allow you to achieve Buddhahood and will cause you problems and suffering in cyclic existence. And then it says, consider how being self-centered is the door to all suffering, and being other-centered is the basis of all excellence. Being self-centered creates the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and all of the other unwanted miseries of cyclic existence, whereas cherishing others, centered, is the basis of all excellence. So that's that word punsan soba. So the all things excellent. And it that can be results as well as a translator's note. That can be excellent things, but also excellence in terms of realization. That word has multiple meanings, and it isn't just about all things that are good. It's also about the excellence one can achieve. So that's the translator's note. But just looking at that word that's translated as excellence, all excellence really means that all things excellent. Decent.
다니바 다제지 상바데 다제지 상바 코나 제뉴발라 무다 디도죄니 되자 뭐도 디도죄니 그것도 디도죄니 담보 어떤 뭐 하나게 다시 봐 어떤 뭐 용도와 하나게 다시 봐 누에 하나게 다시 봐스
Rangi Dashe
어떤 뭐들에도 뭐 니바 다제지 상바도 공기나 제도그레 제뉴그레스 들라 뭐다 제뉴바 뭐다 디도죄니 도죄니래 도문거 되느래도 뭐네 하라게 다시바 미트나 지바지와시 셰트바시네 자와나 테메나 먹어 전부 지와 따르 로공비 제수시 셰베나 달라 젠진도 달라 젠진다 젠라 다진도 타와 타온코나 제데 데니레 델몬도 쇼주인서베 깔레시도 머자데 내다 공비 투이네 강기메 투지바양 데니 메나 마간주르 셰단스 마간주르 셰단 다게 르네 제다도 자바데다 가메 셰송소 서와데 니가 나다고 들으자 다젠지 상바도 공기나 제토그리 제뉴그레스 들랑문다 도죄니레도와 뭐도 도죄니 뭐들에 라게 하라게 다시 봤어.
So the giant Sheba Sache
ni
ngudang actual.
Jeba dajanji sambat kona chetugur chenyugres. Tela ngudang doju ni re.
Doju. Sana do.
Dot setup.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So doju ni ro ngudo wote ngudo 하라게 다시 봐서 어떤에 다음부터 해용을 뭐들에 놓아 하라게 다시 봐 미트나야 하마라게 다 소시 미트 안줄 거봐 이나 신앙적고야 지바지야 저와시 여봐 이나야 셰네 주부차네 주부시네 자와 나스 주부차나 아니 아우토고 매나야 먹어 전부 저와다버스
Lesso.
도부차송의 레거로다.
Lesso.
저와다르 로공비 투 제수시 로도 공비 토레스 공비 토
Lesso.
공비 토 시에베나
Lesso.
달라 젠지다 젠라 다젠도 타와 고나 제그레스다 달라 젠지다 젠라 다젠도 로도 공바이나
Lesso.
로도 정그레스 제데 데니레스 쉔주면도 쉔주레 칼리 슈도 마자데 다젠조 칼리 카브다 레데 네 칼리 카브도 티샤주에 마레스
Lesso.
티슈도 마자데
Lesso.
데다 공비 투이네 강게메 투지바양스 공비 투 네 라기 당하마 메기 투나야 신앙하도 고야지바이나
Hale.
슈도부차네
Lesso.
데메는 마가 차근데 텐다부레스
Seldu.
되니 맨날 마간줄 셰단스
Okay. Nika. Shedan. Dagi Lugni.
다기 르니 젠다도 자바다 까메
Dingichu.
제소스
Okay. Kanga.
어때 Tazu gawa de ngwen kong re ngwen.
Tumble.
Yeah.
Okay. Tuchena. Then wa kabar kagudu.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there are now the number 2, the ability to exchange self and other if you accustom yourself to the thought of doing so. So in this section, Jayan Sheba states there are 2 categories, the actual meditation and then the second category of negating doubts or abandoning doubts about it. And the doubts are whenever it's doubt, it's always pertaining to whatever was presented there in the, prior to it. So the doubts are connected to the previous paragraph or so, usually. That's funny. Siri's trying to answer questions. Sorry. I don't know how to turn that off. Does anyone know how to turn Siri off? Because it's hearing me and then talking back. Sorry. I'm not a good thrower either. I apologize on camera. It's just going to keep doing it. Thank you. Okay, so first category is the actual meditation. We start here, and it will end with the end of the quote from Shantideva. So category number 1 is that. Take the example of your enemy becoming a friend. At first, when you heard even the name of your enemy, fear arose. Later, you were reconciled and became such close friends that this new friend was absent, that when this new friend was absent, you were very unhappy. This reversal resulted from familiarizing your mind with a new attitude. So likewise, if you become habituated to viewing yourself as you presently view others with an attitude of neglect, and to viewing others as you presently view yourself with a cherishing attitude, you will exchange self and other. Engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds says, do not turn away from this difficulty. Although you were frightened upon hearing someone's name, now due to the power of conditioning you dislike that person's absence. And also, it is not difficult to consider my body with the perspective I have toward another's body. Okay, so this is all in category number 1. Rinpoche briefly went through it. So we take an example of somebody who was previously our enemy. We can see examples where we somehow had an event or we thought about it in a different way, an event take place, or our mind begins to think about this person in a different way, and they turn from this state of enemy in our minds to someone we consider a friend. We originally had this negative feeling towards the person, and now the exact opposite takes place, where previously we were even scared to hear the person's name. Now we feel badly when that person isn't present. So this is the switch that can happen, and it's really the word that's used in Tibetan over and over is the word for meditation. They keep changing it here, and it's using habituated, familiarizing your mind with a new attitude. So that word right there is the word that we always translate as meditation. The point being made here is that you're actually meditating when you're thinking about someone, when you're thinking about how you think about someone, you're creating a view. So here the word view is used. As you presently view others and to viewing yourself, this word view is used over and over. So you actually create a view that then, through this thinking that takes place, you create an actual view in one way or another about the person. So all it takes is meditating in a different way than previously meditated, and then that changes the view, and that changes the perception and reaction to the person. So where previously you were thinking negatively, so likewise, if you become habituated to viewing yourself as you presently view others with an attitude of neglect, and to viewing yourself as presently view yourself with a cherishing attitude, you will exchange self and others. So currently, you have meditate upon this idea that you have to only cherish yourself, so that this constant familiarization with cherishing yourself. exchange that takes place here is exchanging that constant familiarization with cherishing oneself to exchanging it to constant familiarization with cherishing others in that same, with that same emphasis. So with that same way of thinking about ourselves and cherishing ourselves, we then think of others and cherish them. So this is the exchange that takes place. So Master Shantideva says, even though this is a hard thing to do, it's very important. Don't turn away from doing so. Do not turn away from this difficulty. Although you were frightened upon hearing someone's name, so previously you had an enemy or someone who you were afraid of, so you would hear this person's name and a fear would arise in your mind. And it says, now due to the power of conditioning, so now you've meditated in some way differently than previously. You familiarized your mind with some different way of looking at this person who you considered enemy, and now you dislike that person's absence. So now you've gotten to the point where previously you were scared to even hear their name, and now you familiarized yourself in such a way that you like them and they're now a friend, and now when they're not around, you feel badly. So you can see how this change takes place. It's not difficult to consider my body with the perspective I have toward another's body. So here, this exchange here is solely the exchange of an attitude that cherishes oneself and turning it towards cherishing others. This is the meaning of this first point, the actual meditation. Dajen detsi Geshe Rinpoche, the Dakshen, the Dakshen Yampa, the Donda. Gangen Sena, the Injike, that's Trapaldu, the Dada, the Dawa.
Das not the Ngal Daso.
Lesso, the Dawa.
Genroa. Da the Gen, the Chabakaru is a Tisuna. Da the Gen, the Jin Samarbe. Da and the James Chow. Jen, a dime Shazamar.
Lesso.
And the Jen Susungai Sangarota. And the Dada Jensana. To set to you the Data Jen Jabaramatu. Rangon to be Data Jens as Samarota. Shut on no side of the Rabin Samarbe.
So this is not an inherently existent self or other that we are exchanging. So we always realize that the self and others that we are exchanging are not inherently existent. And when we look at the two words, self and other, we say they are synonymous. And the reason they're synonymous is if it is a self, it's an other. If it's an other, it's a self. So it has one meaning. Not, just as a translator's note, not synonymous in the way that you think like I'm you and you are me. Not like that. It means if I'm a self, I'm also an other to someone else. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that I'm you. And that's as a translator's note, the common misconception about exchanging self with others, that you suddenly just think that I'm you and you're me, and then meditate like that. It's actually just exchanging the emphasis on attitude of cherishing myself and exchanging it to cherishing others, and you're thinking of that other person's needs in order to do that, but it's not an exchange where you're turning into someone else. That's not the point, and that's the point that's being made here, is that you're changing the view, how you view yourself, how you view others. You're changing that view. Dig Sung Rinpoche, Gongen Mapuche.
That Uju Denredo Tuju. Kete, what the Dubai, Tanja, what the Germany, Tobaju, Lusonre. Kete, Jenji da, Jenji Lu, Dag Lu, maybe Tel Dubai was. Jenji Lu, Dag Lu, Maison, Tella, Rank Ludawa, Chetar, Cheduron, Hanas, Jenji Lu, Dag Lu, Maison. And then what they usually the Ngai Lui is in San Lucande Jungerson. Hana Lunde Yang Pami Kutale, Truba Inshins, Lunde that Lud to Pami Kutale Juma Maribe, Quad Trale, Kota Ami Drugunolo, Pami Kutale and Bujiguro. Learn the Yampami Kota Le, Truba Yinshins, Yenji Luji Chashi Le, Truba Yimbis, Pami Kota the Jengalurota, the Chashi Le, and the Suji Lud Truyores, Chashi Le Truba Yins, Hong Compi Waki, Nanzeba Joataras, Compi Waki, the Ngai Lus, and then Pami Kota the Ngai Lu, Ngai Nas. Ngata ngai lus o tenzin guares chashi le tuba yin ngo ko bi wa ke ngala ngazi je batar je le la ya je le la rangi yin je ban je ba komba na komba shena che des rang je le la rangi lus lu Kondi cheba ina lo chegre ta. Chede tenye le shonju injiro. Shonju tenye le. Teyu chetara yenda ki kuwa chagi tiba la pami kuta la tene buku chegoro ta. Kuwa chagi tiba la cheche nganzi sheba tere. Kuwa chagi tiba la ane ngayi lues zengoro ta. Nganzi sheba tar. Tejin yen la gomba jes. Tejin yen la rana gomba ran jenzin na yen jeba zeba ina gomba jegreze. Gomba je. She so wateba do jeba tere mudwe. Niba.
Nipa de Kanga.
Niba wat kete ne wateba tere. Kete Yenji le dag le mebe tel duba yojota. Yenji le dag le mebe tel rangi lon dawa cheta chenyang do rongcha nas. Ne yengi le de ngai le mare. Ane tel ngai le lo kandas chegres. Duba yojota.
Still do.
Chena. Le de pami kota le duba yojis. Ne ngaro su le de pama du no le Pami kuwa de chali zhuyo res. Zhuxin.
Leso.
Yenji luji chashi le zhuba yinxins. Pami kota de pami luji chashi ro.
Leso.
Tele zhuyo res.
Leso.
Ngo gompi wang ki ngan zinba jewa tara susu la ngan zinba ngai lu la ane rangi yin jeban zinba ngai lus. Jeban zinba gomba shena che tugu res. Kongaras na shonju les teyu je tar jenda ki kwa ta ki teba la chöje ngazin sheba tar teji jen la gomba ches jen la gomba jegen jeng res wateba do jö de renduwa
Leso. So, Dixon. Okay, so this is the second section on the doubts now. So quam, since someone else's body is not your body, how can you develop the same attitude that you have towards your own? So then the response is, your body was produced from your father's semen and your mother's blood. Even though it was produced from a portion of someone else's body, you conceive it to be your own by the influence of previous conditioning. Similarly, if you become accustomed to cherishing another's body as you presently do your own, you will view it with the same perspective that you have toward your own body. Engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, therefore, just as you have conceived I, with respect to the drops of semen and blood of others, so you can be conditioned to cherishing others as you do yourself. Reflect thoroughly on the benefits of being other-centered and the faults of being self-centered. Thereby you'll reduce from the depths of your heart a great delight in meditating on the exchange of self and other. Then recognize that you can actually generate it once you have become habituated to it. So the doubt section, the Rinpoche, dochu, the shunju long kagadu, the shunju long tsar, dochu tsar, gangen serna, the Lama Tsong Kappa, that's Geshe, yene, the dodushe. Dodushe.
Kete jenji lu dag lu me botel doba yojiro ta. Kete jenji lu dag lu maro.
Shesun.
Lu me be. Tela rag lu ndawa jeta chi nyang to dag lu yin. 네, 젠진이 가르쳐 준 거です. 하나. 런데 밤에 고달 줘버렸어. 밤에 두고는 고달 줘버려.
Les.
밤에 르 차시로. 차실 나이 르 나서는 징고로다.
Les.
예 차실라 차실을 줘봐 예야. 뭐 공비왕게 네 나라 나스고 난제바 저와 따라 예지 르라야. 예기 르라가 라기 진 제바 제바 공부하시는 제 도구です.
Les.
수송은宣주les.
Les.
대유제다 현다기 코아타기 되발라. 아메 두고는 밤에 고달라 되네. 는 가수 제요로.
Les.
타기 되발라. 최진 안제 셔바다르. 타기 되발레 제비 네 나다 나이 루스. 안제 셔바다르. 대신 현라 공부하시스. 현제반 제바들 공부하지고래.
Les.
공부하지. 셰소서 왔다봐도
Then the
니바 찬데.
Ale the detar payun dan yemi the the dochu yoma gang and the dodushe. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then okay, so number 2 does end at the end of the quote from Shantideva, Master Shantideva. So it seems like this last part's a summary. As I was reading it, it didn't seem like it. So I'm not sure, but the doubt ends at the end of Master Shantideva's quote. So it says, since someone else's body, so I'll go through it. Since someone else's body is not your body, how can you develop the same attitude that you have towards your own? So how is it possible to develop this attitude which cherishes others' body, the same way we cherish our own, because their body isn't our body? So how do we develop this kind of attitude, this strength of attitude? So that's the question that arises, the doubt that arises. And then the response is, your body was produced from your father's semen and your mother's blood. So we ourselves were produced from parts of others. So the blood and the semen come together, and then we arise from that, according to this description. So the blood and the semen come together, and then we arise from that. We then becomes a basis of designation for naming of some sort. And then it says, even though it was produced from a portion of someone else's body, you conceive it to be your own by the influence of previous conditioning. So you have this previous familiarization, which grasps at an I. So that familiarization then causes you to grasp at this as being I, and the more and more you think about it, the more you believe that that is you, and only you, that there is no other, that there is no other components. You don't grasp at it, an I being parts of mother and father. You grasp at just yourself. You don't think of other parts. You think of yourself alone. So you grasp then at yourself, even though it was produced from portions of others. So you become accustomed to grasping at an I through previous lives, and then now you familiarize yourself with this basis being you, the I being yourself, and then through that familiarization, then you believe it. So likewise, you can familiarize yourself with the opposite. It says, similarly, if you become accustomed to cherishing another's body as you presently do your own, you will view it with the same perspective that you have towards your own body. So if you familiarize yourself over and over again with this idea of change, this change of perspective, then through this constant meditation and familiarization, your mind will become pliable, and then will develop this quality of cherishing others by meditation, familiarization, or habituation. It's translated as habituating your mind, familiarizing your mind, habituating to viewing yourself one way, then you habituate to viewing yourself another way, become habituated to viewing yourself another way. And it says, And then Master Shantideva says, therefore, just as you conceive the I with respects to drops of semen and blood of others, so the drops and semen of blood of others become a basis of designation for this imputation of I, this naming of I, and then you cling to it as you, so you can be conditioned to cherishing others as you do yourself. So if you can familiarize yourself with this somewhat not incorrect, but familiarize yourself with this concept, that this basis of designation is appropriate to then just own and call you, then you can condition your mind to thinking in a different way. So it's saying if you can condition your mind into thinking one way, you can condition your mind into thinking another way. And that's all it's saying. It's saying that you've practiced thinking this way, now practice thinking that way. Sometimes this familiarization is translated as practice. It's been translated as a million different ways because every word as a note is kind of loaded with not enough or too much meaning. Meditation sounds very mystical, whereas familiarization doesn't seem potent enough. So there's a balance somewhere in there. And that's why they've used meditation, because the other words just sound too regular and don't sound like the gravity that it needs to have. But it really, in the word itself, that gravity's not there. It just means to familiarize. But so anyway, think about it however you think, but it's just as a note. In sections like this is where it becomes important, where this word meditation becomes important, where you think it's not meditation unless it's just silent and thinking silently about something. When you learn that this is meditation, and you're just sitting in a car thinking about this is meditation. Translator's note finished. Khensur Rinpoche, Nipatsar. That concludes number 2. Rinpoche, then de sheso, then Jayan Sheba, Kalen, this Sarpa Gutsogudu? Sache Sarpa Gutsogudu? Dochu. Sir. Less so.
Samba Dajen Ji Samba Dajen Ji Samba Dajen Ji Samba Gombi Rimba la Son Rimba Gombi Rimba Dajen Ji Gombi Rimba de la Son de Son Song dans Tambu Theater Pen dans Niemi Leba Sambes Dajen Ji Pen dans Maju Niemi Leba Sambe ne Hintaba ne Gombala Tushu Chelas Dajen Ji Pen dans Maji Niemi San Mabutamba Ina Dajen Ji Samba Combatele Lugabu Yungores Tushu Chelas Combashena Chenmo Bayan Tonga Tes Combash Dajen Jegi in the Dajen Ji Sanlo de Chenmo Combara Shena Chenmo Bayan Tongas Chenmo Bayan Tonga De what about the Song non Tambutre Mare
The Ken Sabudu Rinpoche, going into the Inji the Sumba, they go good to Sumba, the Rimbo Kaba.
Daji Samba Kuban Theater Pen the Shizuje Teta Pen the Shizuje Teta Pen the Shizu Sumba Dajen Ji Dajen Gumbi Rimba la Son Dajen Ji Lunga Zon Ti Gesewa Ne Gonsu Ngun dans son les Watan de Legdoa Teta said Dajen Sumba Dajen Ji Samba Combi Tune Teta is a Combi Tune and Dosita
Bitsu.
Song non Tambu Timbere Garza somba de wote dajan gomsu teta phen da nyeme leba sambe ne hin thaba ne gomba la tushu chela gomba shena che nuba yang thongwa des wote batul dere doa tambu dere sha tambu sana te kare do
NGK, the Sumba.
Sumba
The NGK, the Detar Payun Dan Nyemi, the Nipa Nyamdu.
teta phen da
The Nipa Nyamdu.
teta somba dajen ji jo kombi tsune teta phen da so wote phen de wote marba somba sache dere do somba
Then the Sumba, NGK, She Sumba Ni Shen La Ngai Nyandu Dang Dei Mi La Sopa, the Sumba Gutsogudu. The Detar Payun Dan Nyemi Nipa Nang La. Chikshene de Trugudu, Hako Mare. Yene NGK, the Nipa Nang
teta
La.
phen da nyemi lebar
The
sambe
Nipa.
ne hin thaba ne te gomba la tushu chelas dajen ji phen da nyemi to samba ina dajen je wa gomba la
Lessa.
gabu yungres
Lessa.
tushu chela gomba shena che ne ba thong gomba shena lo de che ne ba de thong song na thong des wa de ba dule wa de la song yin ba
Then yeah, the Sumba Dajen JP So Gombi Rimba.
de la song tambo dajen ji chu gombi remba tambo re
Ale.
wa de re sha dajen ji phen so wa de la song dajen ji chu gombi remba ne se tambo je song na tambo re
Ale. The NGK Dajen J Su Gombi Rimba. The Sache Sumba Ming.
re wa de re
Then Sache Sumba Tambo Dajen J Sheba Dang Dajen.
somba de la ni ro somba de song na tambo re
Okay.
dajen ji chu gombi remba ne so de tambo le yong re
Then Detar Payun Dan Nyemi, the Garre.
teta phen da nyemi de somba re dro somba
Sumba Tambo.
o somba je tama sa je de dro
Oh, okay. Nipa.
tela song
Okay.
re do dajen je wa gombi remba tambo je
Okay, so I'm going to do it like this. Okay, so this section after the quote from Master Shantideva, I'm not 100% sure where categorically it falls. It doesn't seem to fall anywhere in terms of connectivity to the headings that we have. The doubt, the actual meditation, and then doubt. Seems like it's a third section, which is a summary almost. But just going to move forward to category number 3. So Jayan Sheba states in category number 3, there are the Sumba Ewa Je.
somba de la yo
There
je
are 4 categories. So the first category begins here, the stages of meditating on how to exchange self and others. Rimbo
tambo
ne
re dajen ji
Sheba don.
dajen ji chu gombi remba ne tambo de wa dajen je sheba da dajen du sha ji jen da du sha she somba ne jen la nga wo nya ba da ti me la so ba ngai wo nya be lo jang me jes dajen je se ya de jen de ngai kui me de ngai me so de santa du mares
Less so.
lo jang me jes ran je ba ta jen yuan du lu ni kosa jiwa de logres ra jiban zin chue de jen jiban zin chue de ra jen yuan du chue de ra yuan do la da jen nya ba je se do de kwa de gong go res
So, the tambo,
tambi kong de ta ta ul man do ta da
moa yerbe.
mamudu.
Okay. So the first one, Rinpoche said there's quite a bit. So we'll just read what we have so far. The phrases exchanging self and others and making oneself others and others oneself do not indicate a training in an attitude which thinks I am others or others' eyes, etc., are mine. They indicate a change in the orientation of the two states of mind of cherishing yourself and neglecting others, wherein you develop the attitude of cherishing others as you presently do yourself and neglecting yourself as you presently do others. So this is a meditation where there's an attitude change, an exchange of attitude, an emphasis on cherishing. So the emphasis prior to this is cherishing yourself, and then the emphasis changes to cherishing others. Ngay lo son then chu dets la son. De chutsu. Okay, so we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. The sheda yabudu. Then they got it. They dodu she. They detar penyun dan yemi. They dodu she. Chik shena de nipa ewa somyure. Ngu dang dochu dang do.
What about us? Tambeza su daje ji tu gombe rimba la de jaje be saje sun digdu sun nan tambetere daje ji sheba dan da jen to shashi jen da du shashi sun ba ne jen la nga wonya do dan de me la su ba nga yo wonya ba lo jwa me jes daje jes ya de jen da yin jen ge me de nga yi mes o tende san tan ju mares
Less so.
tende lo jwa sa go mares ana karar se na ran la jeban zen ba ta ran la jeban zen bi zen ta jen wan du lo ni
Less
kosa
so.
je ba de daje je lo res
Less so.
daje je ran jeban zen ba na je jeban zen jen wan do na jen ran wan do la ja go res daje je sa de kosa je de jen la da der jeban zen je jen la da na jeban zen go res jeban zen je ran la jen dar yawan du yu lo je wa wos lo je ba de da jen ya ba je wa de gong go res de gong go res ti shi da ge de wa de jen ji du nge je wa song ba yang da jin jin la da de ne da ge de wa la chi chi she bang go ji jen jin jin la yue de ne jen la jen ji du nge yi wan do ka ne te se wa la chi chi she ba de do na rang ge de wa la ma ta wa jen ji du nge se yu dun do ju ba wos wa de song na da ba de te re mo do.
The phrases exchanging self and other and making oneself others and others oneself do not indicate a training in an attitude which thinks I am others or others' eyes, etc., are mine. They indicate a change in the orientation of the two states of mind of cherishing yourself and neglecting others, wherein you develop the attitude of cherishing others as you presently do yourself and neglecting yourself as you presently do others. So the exchange isn't the exchange in ideas of who one is or what one has. It is an exchange in emphasis on the state of mind. So previously the emphasis or state of mind is to that an attitude which cherishes oneself. So the exchange here is the exchange of that mind with a different kind of mind. And the different kind of mind you are changing it for is a mind that cherishes others. So that's the exchange that takes place. The emphasis goes from cherishing yourself to cherishing others. So this is the exchange that takes place. It's an exchange in a state of mind or an emphasis. So whereas currently there is almost a neglect for others and a grasping at cherishing of oneself, so that switch takes place where you think almost neglecting yourself but cherishing others. And then that neglect isn't deprivation. That word neglect means thinking of others' needs before your own. It isn't purposeful deprivation or anything like that, or asceticism. It's literally exchanging that emphasis, that first reaction to cherish oneself, to becoming one that cherishes someone else, that cherishes others. So this all falls into first point. Okay? Dikson.
So na tambo do de che ta ni ba de ja ni ba de ni lu de yong la ge ni des da jen ya ba ji san lu de jang ba la ge ni yo de ge ni san ya ba nge wu res da jen ya ba ji lu de jang la yong na da jen ya ba ji ge ni nge sing wu res ge ni des Gene de randa gente do randa gente do que tem dado né gene você dar suso rezo gene 조반 진진 tene dala tembi dudu la dene ngai yembe Drubam sewa shao dene jenji yembe nyane iwando ne ti nyebo ne dada jenji ngoni ji susuru risu cheba mede Pese ne da la gente lucha la gente da que luchi shede para turginos pana para la dingwene pari lucha turi lucha shene turi lucha wa jinos dena Ngobu kadusu la tuejang, ngobu nyi ji, lu ji, kadu jenji lu ma jiwa da mandawu sa. Dadan jenji ngobu da sabun da mares, ngobu re, sabun giwa ro ta. Dadan jenji da wadani giwa san tang ayo mares. Dad var tune dad jen rubar dad jen de jeans da yin jen mi chao jen na da yin mi chao wadin ja gore ngobu da sabu na zan da yo mares ngobu da sabu mare sabu da ngobu maro gewaro dad jen yin tanda mares dad jen yin de ji tune ruba ngobu da kadu sola de jang ngobu ni ji lo ji kadu jen ji lo ma jo da
Kanga Nipa. Okay, so number one, it just has, I have to add this into it. Therefore, Shantideva's statement above that you must exchange your own happiness for other suffering means to view cherishing yourself as the enemy and then to stop emphasizing your own happiness. In addition, you must view cherishing others as a good quality. Stop neglecting others' suffering and instead emphasize the removal of their suffering. In brief, This statement means that you remove others' suffering while disregarding your own happiness. Okay, that's one. Two, there are two obstacles to training in this attitude of exchanging self and other. You make, so number one, and it's not broken down as clear here in the English, Tibetan, but number one, you make a categorical differentiation between people who are happy or suffering, yourself and others, making them as different as blue and yellow. Then you accomplish your happiness and remove your suffering because you think of them as mine, and you neglect others' happiness and suffering because you think of them as belonging to others. Therefore, the remedy for this is to not make a categorical distinction between self and other as being essentially different. Rather, understand that self and other are mutually dependent, such that when you are aware of self, you are aware of other, and when you are aware of other, you are aware of self. It is like being aware of near mountains and distant mountains. For example, relative to you being here, you think a mountain there is in the distance, as being a distant mountain. Yet when you go to this distant mountain, you think of it as a near mountain. So the awareness of self and other is not like the awareness of a color, for regardless of what color blue is related to, you are aware of it just blue and are not aware of some other color. So the point being made here is that it's not mutually exclusive like two colors would be. For instance, yellow and blue. There's no common locus. Those two colors are mutually exclusive. Red color, yellow color and blue color. But self and other have a totally different relationship. We can say there's one meaning there. We can say they are synonymous because if it is a self, it's another. If it's another, it's a self. Whereas if it's blue, it's not yellow. If it's yellow, it's not blue. So this relationship exists between self and other that is not looked at in the same way of distinction between two different colors or two different phenomena that don't have this relationship. So this is the first point that's being made here, is that you work on this idea of self and other, and this emphasis on what is mine, what belongs to self, and as you weaken that clinging to what is mine and what is self, then you can strengthen that idea of this reversal of focus onto others and what is theirs and what their needs are. And then you can then make a smaller gap between what is self and what is other, to the point where that the self and other are mutually dependent, such that you are aware of self, you are aware of other. So in order for there to be this self that I establish, there has to be something other than self that I'm established, that I'm relating to myself as different from. So that's where the distinction gets made and the obstacle to realization occurs, when this clinging to self alone and one's own needs becomes the focus, and everything else that isn't self isn't your problem or affair, because it is others. It belongs to the role of others. So when you close that gap between self and other, and you make a more clear, you get a clearer understanding of that mutual dependence, that interdependence that takes place, then it weakens that clinging and begins to make you more realistic and more apt to reverse that to an other cherishing, an other focused attitude. Digsun. The Nipa Tsar. Sumba. Shunjulun. Sheso did pay.
다 어디 니바 찾나 다들 니바 어디 라두 말바 라두 다다야 라두
Ladu.
라두 샤지 샹제도 와 말
Lesso.
다다다 얘도 어디 뭐부터 쓰는다 말레스 네 뭐부터 뭐부터 쓰고서 꾸는 게 와로
Lesso.
다전이 게 와산다요 말에
Lesso.
다다 얘 되지 산다
Lesso.
그래스 콩 가봐요 와르스나 라두를 송도 와서 다다야 네 샹제도 와 임바래 대다양 라두레스 다젠이 다젠냐니 공시베 다젠냐니 다젠냐바지 생도 공바시베 샹주선 템바주로 다젠냐바지 생도 아부 공기나 샹주선 템바 차그레스 다젠냐바지 세대 아부 마고나 샹주선 템바 요고 말레스 샹주선 템바 마주나 드 상제도 말보다 sen tenpa njoro dadan yeni tuba de parzu jijin jus dadan yen sa pensun tuni jabar matu ne tuni jayor parzu nandir parzu bagal denan tsarres pagin sedan tsarro parzu tsarın rabres parzu dadan ji tunji mar tunji re marba parzu jijin jus wade ngewanze bat jumbares ane ngode rangi parumi ngode rangi parumi kanla tuyne surunjoro ta parade ngod patana parare pagindun tana surre negro ta wodenre sonde insare kuzu tangasun도 tana kuzu pageyoro
Lesso.
kuzu tana tsage ngazu tsage daro tendra bari sonde insare
Lesso. So number 3 comes from Master Shanti Deva's Compendium of Trainings, the Lapdu. By becoming accustomed to the equality of self and other, the spirit of enlightenment becomes firm. Self and other are interdependent. Like this side and the other side of a river, they are false. The other bank is not in itself other. In relation to someone else, it is this bank. Similarly, self does not exist in its own right. In relation to someone else, it is other. So here, this is perspective again, looking at the perspective of if we are here, then we say that's there. But when we get there, we are here. So that's the understanding that's being presented here, is the perspective of self and other. It's nothing like yellow and blue. Yellow and blue are mutually exclusive. Self and other, we find a common locus. We find are synonymous, rather, in that if there is self, there is other. If there is other, there is self. There's an interdependence, and self is always other, and other is always self. Likewise, here and there are all in perspective. When you're here, there is there. When you get to there, that becomes here, and what was here is now there. So we see how it's just perspective. And it is just showing how you can change your perspective in the way of looking at it, because it's not fixed in the same way that a blue is fixed, will always look like blue and isn't yellow. Whereas self and other, there's an interdependence that you can work with to help to change the way you think, basically. It's it's a tool that allows you to change your way of thinking. Because of this interdependent nature. Dixon.
Di dojuni di dojuse tsajirwa. Ta dene ma kumbi chula te dar penyo dans dajen ji gumbi rinpa la sung dajen ji lunga zungwas. Gumbi rinpa la wade dajenji lunga zungwas.
Rinpoche, the Gombi Rimba, ewa sum, ewa je. Nge ewa je tre sum. Jikshina nge tru sum. Ewa sum?
Dajenji gumbi chun tete penyo da she suje. Dajenji samba gumbi chunes tetara sayadare nwa. Tetara san rusarwa. Tetara laudule sayadarwa. Tetara laudule.
The Gombi Rimba Gatsire, the Gombi Rimba. Sumje,
다제 고
the Sumba.
송바
Gombi Rimba.
다제 지 공비 림발라 송레서
Sum, okay.
다제 지 공바라 송지
Okay, if I said 4 categories for the stages section, it's 3. I apologize if I said 4. It's 3 categories. Okay, the Lapdu Lung Lapsar, the name Moa Lapmason. Then
송바 다제 지
this Sumba,
공비 림발라 송 다제 지 롱어 송다 디 게세와다 공추응어다 송레스
okay.
동부 다제 지시바스 동부 다제 지시바
The Yabudu.
야
Tambo Nipa, this Sumba. The Lapdu Sumba. Lapdu Le Sumba.
라디오 송바레들
Lesso.
라디오
Den.
라디오 지 다 된마
Then the Lapdu Le, then the Lamanson Kappa, that's Geshe Lharampa. That's
라디오레 다제 다제냐
야우도.
공시베스다 라디오 쇼주 말베 쇼주 가서 샤진도와
Lesso.
다제냐 공시베 샤주선 템바주 샤주선 템바 용거레스 다제냐 바지 선마구나 템바 용거 말레스
Lesso.
다다 제니 뚜바데스 다다 제스 바로 편수 뛰는 주바데스 게와 호센 호버도 서버나 게와 말레스
Lesso.
편수 뛰는 주바데 바로 촌다브레스 파게로다 사게로다 말레
Seldu.
바로 저 제신 주스 모데 랑기 바로미 간라든 서른 조로사 당가순데 다는 가인서 거기다나 야 고텐다 버렸어
Lesso.
저 다제 다니 랑기 마루자 간라드네 젠도 조로 시드살라 드네 자바자인지 드살라 드네 다드 젠 자버스 바로 손다 버스 드네 바로 손 자바나지 다드 젠데야 드네 다드 젠 자고르마도 모세나진 게와샤주요 마레스 자바자인지 랑기 모두바 매버 송소스
Lesso.
랑원의 와데 모세나진 랑원의 두바 매버 송소레스
Lesso.
젠지 동행지
Lesso.
젠지 동행지 달라면베 뜻이 또 매베 도장비 게세와네스 게세와 니요로 니바데 있어봐 다 젠지 동행지 달 너고 말레스 젠지 동행세 고바 게모도스 젠지 동행 달 너고 모도스 젠지 동행지 달라 면베 뜻이 또 매베 도스 젠지 동행 그 달라 면바 인소다 아니 젠지 동행세 올람 베전 제고야요 말레스 매베 도냐비 게세와네스 게세와네 와드는마 들려야 비지 질 해반다도
Then Nipa Je, Gay Nipa.
야
Gangisene the Gay Ni Yure.
오래
I think it's Samba. Gay Ni.
지지
Then the Gay Nipa.
지지 대단나
Okay.
게임비스 네 오래 뜻으로다 제지 동에 이제 달라면 봐 이소 제지 동에 세고요 말로
Lesso.
까비 동에 그 라발 넣어요 말로 까비 동에 라발 세도 고바 매버타스
Gompi Sena?
컴바
Gompi.
leg vet
Lesso. Lapan Gomp.
네 라발 넣고 말로
Lesso.
라비 까비 내세발 고바 매버타 까비 나사되게 라발 면에 베이스 어디데 다운
Okay.
가드 말바
Lesso.
야
Okay, so then number 3 of the previous also has thus Shanti. Okay, so number 3. Moreover, Shanti Deva's compendium of training states, by becoming accustomed to the equality of self and other, the spirit of enlightenment becomes firm. Self and other are interdependent. Like this side and the other side of a river, they are false. The other bank is not in itself other in relation to someone else it is this bank. Similarly, self does not exist in its own right. In relation to someone else, it is other. Thus, Shantideva indicates that self and other are merely posited in relation to a particular reference point and do not essentially exist. So by familiarizing oneself with the equalness of self and other, by looking at if it is self, it's an other, and looking at that perspective, then one's ability to achieve the mind that aspires to enlightenment is strengthened. It becomes firm. And it says, self and other are interdependent, like this side and the other side of a river. They are false. So there is no actual other side of a river, because it's all in the perspective of from what side you are on. So it's only the other side based on being on the other side, if you will. So it requires an other side to be posited as other side. So it is neither side or other side, this side or other side. That's why it says they are false. The other bank in itself, other in relation to something else, it is this bank. So it is only named as this bank if there is something other than this bank to allow one to single it out as something other than something else. This is not that. Yeah, this is not that. That is not this. But this is that, and that is this in reality. And then it says it's a particular reference point. And there's not an actually existent this or that. It's just the reference point from which you posit this or that. But this or that has no this or that-ness of it, unless you say it's this and that. So that's the point that's being made here, is this change in perspective. Okay, number 2. So we go back. There are 2 obstacles to training in this attitude of exchanging self and other. So now we get to the second obstacle, and there are 4 categories in that. So there's 3 in the first one and 4 categories in the second one. And the first category among the 4 begins, you must remove the obstacle of thinking, I will not make an effort to dispel other suffering because of others' suffering does not harm me. It would be like not accumulating wealth in your youth out of fear of suffering in your old age because you think that your suffering in old age does no harm to you in your youth. Or, as stated in engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds, it would be like not alleviating the pain in your foot with your hand because your foot is other. Old age and youth, or similarly former and future lives, are just illustrations. This principle applies also to morning and evening, former and later days, and so forth. Rinpoche, the Yanjer Suranang, the Gangyesen, the Injike Nge Sampa Trugudu, it would be like the Nge Gamba Nagadu, then Nge Lapa Gambi Na Datuna, the this can Sabadu.
You can never wrote that. Younger doing a roll of maneuver in Sudan, younger doing a sequel mares. And the Kamba Nasa the Labal no Maro.
Less so.
Kambi Nasa the Labal is able to end up down the town. That's it down the Marbe. Kambi Nasa the Labal Segal of Menjual.
Oh, okay.
Shumugo, the Kambi Nasa the Labal no Maro.
Less so. Ale, Midrewa.
What is it?
Okay, okay. Selbudu, 2 chenas. So it would be like not alleviating the pain of your foot with your hand. So that's by using, for instance, if you have some sort of sore on your foot, and it requires medicine being put on by your hand, but it'd be like saying, I'm not going, the foot isn't harming my hand, so my hand doesn't need to in any way help my foot, because it's not my hand that's hurt, so there's no reason to get involved with this hand because it's not what's hurt, it's my foot that's hurt. So it's basically not seeing this interdependence, not seeing this connection. So this is it reduces it to in absurdum, is what technically it's called. It's a reduction to, it's a consequential reduction. So it'd be like not alleviating pain in your foot with your hand because your foot is other. So it's like saying, it's not, my foot's not my hand, so there's no reason to alleviate the pain. And here it says old age and youth or similarly former and future lives are just illustrations. This principle applies also to morning and evening, former and later days, and so forth. So you can't have old if there's not young, and you can't have young if there's not old, and you can't have before if there's not after, and there's not an after if there's not a before. So it's showing all of these relationships, that after and before probably synonymous also. All of these things are future lives and previous lives would be. That future life and that previous life would also, we would say, is also a previous life and also a future in relation to others. So that's the point here, is that there are these connections and interdependent relationships that we don't normally see, Dison, and put into our perspectives. Uh-huh. Duchu, Nipa, Chikshena. Dasi dan gutsogudu.
Duchu de Maro, Duchu de
Indicate true adan lenja ire. Gengo dan lochon, dene de gut dasi dan gutsogudu.
Yeba di Duchu de Kitty Tarjim.
Dachi, Dajan JB. Okay, let's see here.
Gila
That would
Niji,
help.
that the Gi Niba do the how do say the end, how do say the end, what give Allah do say
So,
Jenji da, what the net, that the Niba.
Gelde, Geshe, Nima, Nima, Nyam, Dradang, Shidro, Gelde,
Tobadla Niro, Nigana, what the Niba de Narisha, Niba de Narisha,
Jeyomare.
Niba de Naridua.
Mama Je.
She told me.
Okay. So Rinpoche said that there's 5, not 4, in this section, number 2.
Gay Sewala, how do you call it? She so. Niba Gay Sewala, Gene, Ya, Jenji Dala, Menebe, this is the Medunaba. Sewa Telangarisha. Gay Sewa the Niro, Nigan on the Niba de Nadiru, Sajinga.
Okay, so there's 5 categories that are going to be in number 2. Go back over it.
Gambits, Tetra Gambits, Tenatamu, Tetra Gambit says,
The Losong.
Allah.
Do you know part do the Tambo?
Tetra Gambit says in Rosarva. Tetra Gambit say, Dungaji to Nashisu, Tetra Gambit say, Dungaji to Nashisu. Tetra Gambit say, what in the red water, the Gambit say, Dungaji to Ne, Jumbit say, no subala, Temaba Judas, Gibich had Dungal Gangan with his son, Jumbisu, and Jalasaya, what in the Tusuka Temaba Tanagas.
Lesso.
Temaba Jude, Gambi Dungaji, Jumbal Menubes, Gambi Dungaji, Jumbal Nogamaris,
Lesso.
Menubishes,
Lesso.
or the Nan Damatrija.
Okay, so so there's 5 categories. We're going to just start this over. The first category, you must remove the obstacle of thinking, I will not make an effort to dispel others' suffering because others' suffering does not harm me. It would be like not accumulating wealth in your youth out of fear of suffering in your old age because you think that your suffering in old age does not harm you in your youth. So saying that my old age suffering doesn't hurt me now, so there doesn't any reason to accumulate anything because the me now is not affected in any way by the me later. So it would be thinking in that way. This is the point number 1 of the 5. The tumble.
Chichala saya, kala saya, watu ngalo, tenda meba tade, ane gembi dunga jijomba la menebe ejer. Ngaga na tambudere. Tejin to niba leonde.
Okay. So again, number 1 is you must remove the obstacle of thinking, I will not make an effort to dispel others' suffering because others' suffering does not harm me. It would be like not accumulating wealth in your youth out of fear of suffering in your old age because you think that your suffering in old age does not harm you in your youth.
Oje ta niba dere do niba. Tejin do kambi do ngaya labe mesewa jode. Jen yimbi shiro, she sonsos.
Less so.
Kambal nasa shonsona ane labagi pen shoya la soba tenda meba tal ane kambi nasa tega labal neo maro.
Less so.
Wadere doa.
Less so.
Teji no kambi do ngaya labe mesewa jode jen yimbi shiro she sonsos wadini bare.
Number 2, or as stated in engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, it would be like not alleviating the pain in your foot with your hand because your foot is other. So it would be like saying that the pain in my foot isn't affecting my hand, so there's no reason for my hand to alleviate the pain in my foot because the pain in my hand is unaffected by the pain in my foot. I have no feeling of pain in my hand. Diksung.
Oje ta somba dere do somba. Somba gejun da jiwa ngashe chomba tang yin jes gejun da geba da jumba sa te ngalo tune jaba marbe tune jubares ne jiwa ngama da shema tu ka tune jubare tu jaba de chomba tang res example chomba tang yin je nyama ngati nga hadu da shedu so sola jaros nyama ngama da shema 네 하루도 쉐도 와도 적은 걸 와도 뛰는 주바래서 말이야 녀망 하마 안는 아주 때 예수로에 녀망 하마라고 말이야 녀망 하마로 와 예수로에 되나 녀망 셔마래는 말이야 와도 그 뛰는 주바래서 녀망 하마 녀망 하딩어 하루도 쉐도 안는 하루도 쉐도서는 뛰는 주바래서 하루도 대담을 되는 셔도로 하루 셔도 되는 주바레스 셔도다 셔도 술라요 샤오르샤오 어디 박 강갈 지는 산당 그러송들.
And then old age and youth, this is the next one. Old age and youth, or similarly former and future lives, are just illustration. This principle applies also to morning and evening, former and later days, and so forth. So it shows these relationships that are interdependent. Again, old age and youth, previous lives, we would say have different relationships. If it was a previous life, our previous life would be our future life for our previous life, and so forth. So it's all in the perspective and the way of looking at it. Diksong. Nenni dochu.
다 제바 어디 게드사 게준서 되는 막고 안가 땡게 좀 그저 라기 제들 게드 게준 주지바 일어서 어디 가지 나르지 해도 말봐 게드 게바도 준서야 돼 게바도 준바 주지레스 주지 일라 강라 초바지 임베 네 라젠이도 뭔다고 냐나스 네 게준이도 주지바레 깜바다 라바니 초바지고 강사지가 르로와 네 란다제 된다고 문도서 라젠이 된다고 말해 다제 제세 안지고 문도서 다제이 라젠에서 문다고 냐나 Jundong Tsubi ne, Tsuba ne, Keji Mambu Dang, Tsuba Jen Mambu la Taba Yin Che, Rang Jai Ngo Me Las, Rang Ki Da Dang, Yen Ji Da Jang, Tsujun Tala Yu Gube, Da Dang, Yen Tu Ne, Jaba Zang Mebe, Ngo Druba Me Dos, Wata Bata Jeba Rendua, Da Tene Ma Kaji Kin Dua Baji Lega Dua, Kede Gejun, Da Nga Zu Pasha Zul Kaji Nara Zu Go De Yada Marbe, Tende Kede Sa De Kaji Sa Zuba Go De Yada, Da Nga Da Jirma Je Tuba Lhona Ta Kago Roa, Kede Gejun Juji Yin Las, Geba Da Junba Juji Re, Kan La Tsuba Ji, Kanza Ji Ki Kamba Da Laba Re, Ji Yin Be, Ranjen Yin Da Daga Mundu, Ranjen Yin Da Kaka Res, Munda Wo Nyana, Jundong Tsuba Ne, Keji Mambu Dang, Tsuba Jen Mambu La Taba Yin Je, Ranjai Ngo Me Dos, Jundong Tsuba Se De, Keji Mambu La Ten Ne Taba Yin Je, Ranjai Rang Ngo Druba, Deva Druba Yo Ma Res, Ranjai Ngo Druba Me La, Rangi Da Dang, Yen Je Da Jang, Sujun Tula Yu Gube, Rangi Da Jang, Yen Je Da Jang, Sujun Tula Yu Gube, Da Dang Yen Tu Ne, Jaba Zang Mebe, Rangi Ngo Druba Me Dos, Wata Bata Jiba Rendua.
Okay, so number 4, we have a question and answer. Lama Tsongkhapa deals with this almost in a debate style. And just as a translator's note, I think this might help. Self and other are synonymous, but that self and that other are not. They are mutually exclusive. So there's no common locus between this self and that other are not synonymous. Just self and other. Just the raw name self and other. Quam, but old age and youth are one continuum, and the foot and hand are one collection. Therefore, they are not the same as self and other. So the quam is being raised that this is one person's parts that we're talking about, one collection. Self and other, this isn't an example that you can use that's sufficient. So here it says, but old age and youth are one continuum, and the foot and hand are one collection. Therefore, they are not the same as self and other. So the response, continuum and collection are designated to many moments and to many parts. They do not have a self-sufficient essence. The self of yourself and the self of others must be posited to a collection and a continuum. So self and other are not established by way of an essence that can be posited independently. However, since beginningless time, you have found your own suffering unbearable because you have been conditioned to self-cherishing. Therefore, if you become conditioned to cherishing others, you will give rise to an attitude of finding others' suffering unbearable. So when you begin to get this perspective of this interdependence of self and other, and you begin to think of their suffering, then you begin to not experience that suffering, but have a different perspective on it, and attention towards it, and less attention towards your own needs. So this reversal takes place where this attitude of cherishing reverses so much that the idea of someone else suffering you would find unbearable because of this saturation within your mind of this connection between self and others. So it's saying, that's it. Digson.
다진 왼쪽 도마 매번에 진진 공비왕게 랑기 도간쇼라 머저바 임비 옌라 진진 공나 예지 도간세올라 머저바 찌그데스 대따르 다진지 게세네 공비 추응어네스 다진지 게세네 게니도 게니드세네 아니 다진지와 공비 추응어라 뭐든 마 용거레스 다진지 저 공비 추응어네 Dalai chabi ongi ranchiba zonwa de koa tome ne tabato mundoba nasu chelas ne Dalai chabi ongi ranchi cheba zeba tege ano wate tela te jusheba la tene ane nyewa ta yedata tondu tang ano wate koa ki dongen kanga nyungde res rangi chinzi goba kunju go mana chinzi yoten kunju je wate sore mende leyan tachi jila da kunla karin chewa gons da jen da jowa ne tambu jin de be de gons wate su kong jiba tendo wata cheba zongwa la tene taba to mende ba nasu che las rang pensung soba shi sheba de jang rangi pensung soba ne pyu dabu che ya gen doba yo res doba yo jang rangi tensu zonde ne ta mayinba la shubes rangi jeba zene ne rususu jibun ya ge ta mayinba la shube keba changlin deba son yang rangda jenji tuyan kaya mandu las keba changlin deba yang rangdun de jene yo rang jenji de mapung na ne rangdun de jene keba changlin deba le ne jen rangda jen ke tuyan ru mares yung mares tuyan kaya mandus tanda keba changlin de sari de nga zo rangdun jene tashin yo marwa ru yo mares de mandu ba de rang jenji on ke res manduba tanto maze ne randon de jeno manduba maze manduba tanto maze dungen baji ki nawan juro dungen baji dungen nenge sungu dungen la so dungen baji na de yores nawa juro randon ji samba de randon ji samba de jela pu ne shuna che shinto kawa sanje ne rajen je tun tanje pensung soba njowa dun mazawa la de dar maje be kala tun mebe tun de sos
Less so.
tan te dar sheba shene dai chu da jeban zemban de tramba de shejin tene beba de me majeba ta jeba jun tudo mojo nyabe ngeba tembu shene le mo tomar komba sheba de shunju le kon ane ndi jata tanje do koa dala nyoba shes ranjinzin deke jawa mota jata momo so ane sosul no yores ranjinzin deke no yores ndi jata tanje do koa jata tanje keba jata tanje do koa dala nyoba she koa lo kubi nago so sosul no yores ichu randun shendebes ichu randun shendebe keba dhamen de ju chans ne ngaron su tanda shendeba tege keba dhamen de ju chan ngewa chenpo te tabu choji dungen bashi rus randun de wa de rang jinzin wang ke ne keba dhamen bo dungen momu nyong wares ngewa chenpo te tabu choji dungen bashi ru shedang kede choji hadu so lende sheba chona ne kede choji cho ngama ne ra jinzin to pon jen jinzin nyalen choyo ba yina choji hadu so lende sheba chona ne sanje pensu deme ba nega ndenda jumesis what dada ngaso koal khoda na jite yoma sibare haman sanje sa yores
Less so.
haman rajin de bon jen jin de yete mata ba yin so dada ngaso wote dongen yon koal khoda teres che son sos
Less so.
teda rangi rangi kamazin shumu joa rangi ludan longshu gaza na tuba meba senjen la tong yu lu yang yang zhangwa tang kan la tangwa ti tuen sha gui shins tela loba druba maribe lu la soba teda la rangi tuen to maybe lu kabar sha de ane dan jen je onjur je yeshe ngaba she je la senjen to ku ma tu ba dan che je jem sang dan che je jem sang jenwa mi la soba yi randa druba rima yi tede mi la soba yi tela loba shamari she son sos tela loba shamari she son sos le la soba jendun do mi ba shode rangi tuen la mi ba le dan le nga dan yi ji jen la ne bi jen she ba na na de ngayang ta me bi ne ba jalas rajin de jo ngama mobula ngasul ne ba je yores ne ba jala da don ya pen ba der ju la chune rajin de susul pen ba da ji san lu ko go chu de res de on do sone de ngan shin do me ba je do nya ne gabar sha de chöju ku galabi haji judi yen de ne don chödu kan ro chöji treba kunjong sha da don dala rangi dun yue nyang senba de doshi da ge yen la chö tongjes joa ma sen shesha bus rajin de jen la zong yin se ni kede ba me june chö senjen na la ma jin na chö jingu nyawa yi soma na la jin do nge de dar chö ji reji dar ko shebe ko shimbe yuan du 다는 큰데 전시대 최저라든 semba 용 sheso 다는 뭐 다는 뭐도 갈래 주나 말이야.
The chutsu juchila.
야.
Meaning the kanga lo.
야, 갈래 루나. 제마시쇼 말.
Okay, so we're just going to read through quite a bit of information. Let me just back up to where we are. 1 second. After you have eliminated the obstacles to exchanging self and other in this way, the actual way to meditate is as follows. Out of attachment to self, your self-cherishing attitude has produced all sorts of undesirable things throughout the beginningless time of cyclic existence up to now. Although you wanted to make things perfect for yourself, you have emphasized your own welfare and engaged in improper methods. So since beginningless time, you have tried to fulfill your own needs over and over again, but have only failed and created more cyclic existence. You have spent countless eons at this, but have not at all accomplished your own or others' aims. Not only have you not achieved this, you have been tormented only by suffering. If you had replaced concern for your own welfare with concern for others' welfare, you would certainly have already become a Buddha long ago and would have completely and perfectly accomplished your own aims as well as those of others. As you did not do this, you have spent your time uselessly and laboriously. Making a firm determination by thinking, now I understand the faults of self-cherishing and the benefits of cherishing others. With great effort, relying on mindfulness and vigilance, I will discontinue the present self-cherishing, my greatest enemy, and I will not allow any potential self-cherishing to arise. In this way, frequently stop self-cherishing. Engaging in the bodhisattva deed says, self-cherishing has harmed me in all my myriad lifetimes and cyclic existence. You, O mind, though you spent countless eons wanting to accomplish your own welfare, through such great hardship you have accomplished only suffering. And also, if formerly you had acted for others' welfare, this condition which lacks the perfect happiness of Buddhahood could not possibly have occurred. Thus, neither be self-centered nor support self-centered tendencies. You must train again and again in the attitude of freely giving to all beings your own body, resources, and roots of virtue, and you must work for the welfare of those to whom you give these things. It is wrong to do the opposite, so stop the attitude which sees your own body, resources, and roots of virtue as being for your own purposes. Engaging in the bodhisattva deed says, I am controlled by others. You, O mind, know this for certain. Now, do not think of anything other than the welfare of all beings. It is wrong to achieve my own aims, with my eyes, etc., that are under others' control. Therefore, it is incorrect to do wrong to others, with my eyes, etc., that are for their welfare. If you lose the thought that your body, etc., are for others' welfare, and think they are for your own benefit, or if you see them as agents of physical, verbal, or mental harm to others, then stop this way of thinking by contemplating how this previously brought you limitless harm and how you are still mistaken in regard to its appearance of helpfulness, which is false. If you are controlled by this wrong way of thinking, it produces only unbearable suffering.
다 거와도 뭐야 버지고 신전 단지도 산지 고부터 비전조 수스 하나 따바이나 되는 추대바 자순 사바이나 자수 먹어봤어요 말이스 되는 가서 거와데 산지 고부터 종호바이나 산지 고모마도 바도티 데블까지 베제진 좋아요 말이스.
It's very important now that we make a strong aspiration and dedication. It is said that a drop of water in the ocean doesn't disappear until the entire ocean's water disappears. Likewise, properly dedicated virtue, dedicated to Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, will remain and become a cause for our complete Buddhahood. So it's very important that we do a proper dedication of the virtue we've created during this session.
네,
Just like a drop of water in the ocean isn't extinguished until the entire ocean is extinguished, a virtue that is dedicated towards complete enlightenment shall not perish until one achieves that goal, is the quote. Thank you very much for listening so well. The concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Yatso may stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wanda, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denana, Hatsu Lamrim Chenmo Kanga Trilna.